Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's Crush It in Sales podcast. I'm your host, Melinda Van Fleet. I'm a confidence and mindset mentor, coach, sales consultant, best-selling author, freelance writer, and speaker. And I am so excited to have you join me today. Oh, and I'm also a small business owner with my husband. Yay! As I mentioned last week, I'm trying to do a better job of sharing all of my knowledge, which goes hand in hand with the topic of this podcast, niching. Oh my God. So I want to say a couple things first before I dive in. Number one, if you are someone who is niched and you are happy, kudos. This podcast may not be relatable to you in any way, shape, or form, and that is cool. That is fine. I also realize that the podcast listens for this episode may be low, and I am totally fine with that. This podcast is to speak to the people out there that struggle with this topic, have struggled with this topic, or maybe are thinking of starting a business. Maybe you want to be an online coach and you're struggling. This podcast is specifically for you. With all of my heartfelt compassion, I'm giving you a hug over the podcast airwaves, whatever they are. Because it can be maddening, it can be limiting, it can cause lots of pivots and twists and turns and things that just waste your time, waste money, waste mental energy. You become out of energetic alignment if you get sucked into this niching vortex when it is not aligned for you and it is not your path. And believe me, that has been my journey. That is why I want to share it. So I started down this path with my tagline being a confidence and mindset coach, which is what I have come 360 all the way back to. In the meantime, in all of those years, I got sucked into listening to all of these other people that became very successful by niching. And as the years went on and I was in the swirl of, well, should I niche? Well, what would be my niche? I don't know. I have a ton of experience. Like, what would I do? What makes sense? What do I feel called to? Doing people's freebies online, sitting on workshops, being part of conversations, having these conversations with one-on-one coaches that I would hire. It always ended up in some maddening swirl. And so I realized a couple things in my journey, and this is what I want you to think about if you are like me and you have had this experience. Number one is a story share that I'm going to share. Ryan and I are Gen Xers. I'm 51. My husband, Ryan, is going to be turning 50 in December. When we lost our jobs at the same time, which was in 2009, and if you know that story, that's cool. If you don't, just listen to the intro of the Good Karma Success Coach podcast. But we lost our jobs. We were both always W-2s. We had been W-2 employees our entire careers. So we were in our late 30s. I think I did the math the other day. I was 38 when I lost my job. And our parents were also W-2s. So we did not have any entrepreneurial background, insight, nothing. Social media was not anything like it is now. Like, seriously, nothing like it is now. I think maybe Facebook was kind of just starting and I wasn't online. I was on LinkedIn to try to find a job, but that was it. It was literally LinkedIn was to try to find a job. And so we had in our hearts and our dreams, Ryan to be a charter boat captain and for me to be a sales rep because I wanted to be paid per performance. And so when we moved to Florida, that was what we were doing. We were like, yep, this is what we're doing. We're rolling up our sleeves and we're super excited. We're going to be 1099s instead of W-2s. And that was a big enough journey to begin with because, again, we did not have that background. We did not have that training. Our families were our W-2s, my dad, my mom, Ryan's dad, Ryan's mom. So we didn't have anyone, zero, zip, helping us become entrepreneurs. We really just learned self-led, trial and error, figuring shit out. Lots of mistakes. So when we then started into coaching and doing on more things online, which was really in 2018 when I, started following Grant Cardone and things that I mentioned in the last week's episode about leveling up to build success. That's when I started to realize that those people that were experiencing such massive success, those were the people that had niched, right? So like John Lee Dumas niched himself as a podcaster. So did Pat Flynn, Amy Porterfield in the online coaching course creation space. You have Jasmine Starr. She was really known for photography, for Instagram was kind of her thing. Same with, Jenna Kutcher, like all these really, really big names in this space. And all people that I totally respect, admire, have bought their courses, like I have all of it, right? But what I realized is they, in general, are 10 years younger than Ryan and I. So when the tide changed in 2008, 2009, they had the foresight to take their business online. So they went online, 10 years younger, 10 years ahead, if you want to think of it like that. We, 10 years older, Gen Xers, went still to more traditional format for earning an income, but just as a 1099 versus W-2. So, a couple years ago when I started to kind of do the math on these things, I was like, wow, this is kind of the timeline, and this is like how this all worked. And back then in the day, it was about niching. And it's very fascinating for me now. And I just notice things. I don't have the time to do deep dives, so I'm just going to speak in generalities. But there are people that I have noticed that they're kind of stuck. And these are people outside of the names I mentioned. So these are other people too. This world is big. I've noticed people be kind of stuck. They're kind of stuck. They may be stuck at income levels, or they just may be stuck with kind of selling the same thing all the time. Like, how are you growing your audience? What are you doing? Because honestly, a lot of those people, like, I've come and gone from, right? I've got their product. It's kind of the same stuff they talk about. They re-release it once or twice a year. Like, I kind of moved on. Like, I have it. It's fine. Did I use it? Sometimes I use pieces of it. But I really kind of move on. So when I started to really realize this and see the patterns more and more, I was like, I have to do what I'm led by my soul. And my soul is that I don't really have a niche. I don't. I'm okay with that. Saying I'm a confidence and mindset mentor, because I'm more mentor than coach, that's it. That's it. You come to me with what you need. You come to me. I like self-led people that can get their butts off the couch. You come to me with what you need. You need help with social media? Great. You want to start a podcast? Great. You want to work with your husband and it may be challenging? Great. You wish to infuse more spirituality and manifestation and law of attraction into your lives? Fantastic. Or you want a combo of all of these things? That is great. You want to be a writer? You want to write a book? That's fantastic. You are still in the corporate world and you're dealing with a really toxic environment, passive aggressiveness. Oh yeah, 16 years, been there. Totally get that. You just want to start a business. You want to level up your sales. Pretty much anything, unless it's, I was going to say health related, but I did release 40 pounds in 2020 and have kept that off, so I could help you with weight release, both with programs and also energetically and the mindset around that. Because once you lose the weight, once you release it, like, you can control it with your mind. Seriously, that's what I've done. So, I don't have kids, probably there, right? Like, the list is pretty endless. So I have really come to embrace and ignore the noise of the niching. And there are so many of you out there, so many beautiful people out there that have probably had the same thing. And the reason why I wanted to do this podcast so badly is because, yes, I still see that conversation happening in Facebook groups. I still see it. Oh, I don't really have a niche. I don't know what to do. And then people will pipe in and be like, well, what do you love to do? Yes, okay, you can try all that. You can do all that. That's what I did. But honestly, I wasted time. If I would have just stayed my course instead of flip-flopping and even energetically flip-flopping and doubting myself and doubting my capabilities and my confidence, like that's where the real time suck was. People don't even see that, right? They may see me change the name of this podcast 3 times, but they don't even understand like what goes on mentally. That's where the work is. That's where it's amazing to have a mentor, someone to talk to, because it's really all the shit that's going on inside your head that's holding you back from taking action, from doing something, from believing in yourself, right? So really busting through this whole paradigm that is quite frankly, number one, in my opinion, outdated. And number 2, not necessary if that's not what you feel like doing. That's not what you feel like doing. Like you can choose what to do. If that calls to you, then don't have a niche if you don't feel called to have a niche. If you feel called to have a niche, then have a niche. Like I can also tell you a flip side story, which is when we bought a second boat to fish in the backcountry so we wouldn't lose so many charters when the weather's bad. So we only lose charters when the weather's bad. That's it. Otherwise, Ryan's booked every day. And years ago, gosh, the year 2017, geez, we bought a second boat called the Dargle, and it was this amazing boat. I freaking loved it. It's so cool. And it was not a boat seen in the Florida Keys. I think we're the only second person to have this boat. I think there's one in Tampa. And then we had one here. And so Ryan thought, hey, I'm also going to learn the backcountry. So I don't lose these trips. We'll get this other boat. We can just switch them to the backcountry. And I was on board as always as a supportive business partner and wife who believes in her husband. And so we bought this boat. And he tried to fish the backcountry. He fucking hated it. Brown water, small fish. He was like, oh, this is not for me. I only like to hunt big fish. I only like blue water. So energetically, it didn't work. And then he tried to switch his customers back there, and they were like, no, we hired you for the blue water, for the big fish. So that didn't work either. So he is more niched in the blue water. So that makes sense for him to be more niche. So again, like I said in the beginning, no shade if you are someone who's niched, but this is for someone who is struggling with it at the soul level, and they're hearing all this outside noise that you should have a niche. You're not going to be successful if you don't have a niche. That is so untrue. One of the biggest coaches I follow, Melanie Anlair, I think she's done like 50 million in 4 years. Like she's incredible. And you know what? I wouldn't say she's niched at all. And I think she's talked about this a little bit here and there, but she talks about relationships. She talks about social media. She talks about energetics, money, whatever she feels like sharing. I think that's amazing. And I wish more and more people would really understand that and be supportive of that if you're someone out there that's trying to tell someone to make sure you have a niche. So anyhow, I'm giving her some props and some inspiration for sharing my point of view and my experience with others too in this podcast. As I mentioned in my gratitude podcast, the Good Karma Success Coach just the other day, like give teachers props. Say thank you. Do it. Say thank you. Gratitude towards others. So I'm saying thank you to you for listening, for sharing. If you know someone out there, if this doesn't relate to you, but you know someone out there that's an entrepreneur that's struggling with listening to outside noise that doesn't align with their soul, please share this podcast with them and give them my biggest heartfelt love and hugs over the internet. And until next week, I hope you crush in sales. Please connect with me, follow on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or LinkedIn. I've been posting every day about the offers and things I'm doing. Check out my website. I just updated my whole homepage. I have a mastermind coming up in October. I released my first audio. It's called Freedom. It's with extra tips to help you with overthinking, which is something I have worked on to open up my intuition and amongst other things, just feel better. And also masterclasses twice a month. This month coming up, September, will be about social media. Yes. So lots going on. Of course, private one-on-one coaching. So check out my website. That's probably the easiest, melindavanfleet.com, or just stay in touch with me via the socials, or check out the links in this podcast, the show notes. All right. Thank you. Bye.